Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am Jamie Cope, the Manager of Business Development at the WVU Industrial Extension. And hopefully you're here for OSHA's Top 10 Violations today with John Frazier. Just a few housekeeping things before we get started. We're going to give you the opportunity to put questions in the chat. If it's appropriate to stop John at where he is, I'll try to interject a question, but if not, we'll tackle all of those at the end. And please, if you have any questions for John, that's what makes this fun and interactive. So please put the questions in the chat and we'd love to hear from you. Don't forget that the WVU Industrial Extension is here for you. We like to actually make the lives of small manufacturers in West Virginia easier. That's what we're here for. So any opportunity we get to do that for you, just let us know. We're happy to hear from you, and hopefully we can help you with whatever your points are. A few things up here on the slide. We've got some exciting opportunities coming up. If you're in the NGRDA region down there in the southern part of the state, we've got a great leadership class, open enrollment, coming up February 16th. I know we've got, I think we've got 13 or 14 registered for that one already. A Lean 101, where we're actually using Legos, that's coming up March 2nd, and an OSHA 10-hour, March 22nd, 23rd. So if you're in that region, go ahead and check those out. I'm also going to tease you with, we have a very large, exciting event coming up on April 24th. There'll be more information coming about that soon, but go ahead and just mark that on your calendar that you're busy that day. So we'd love to have you at that event on March 24th or April 24th. And on March 8th, we've got a webinar coming up about spring cleaning, using 5S to do spring cleaning. So anytime that you're interested in joining us for our events, we'd love to have you. And those are all at wvmep.com/events. So that's what I've got for now. I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and let John take over. And like I said, if you've got questions, put them in the chat and we'll try to get those to John as soon as we can. All yours, John.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. Welcome, everyone. We are all tuned in today to learn about OSHA's top 10 most frequently cited standards. And my internet is not the fastest, so I'm going to try to stop my video while I'm talking so I don't lose the audio. So I'm going to do that. And so, yeah, we're all tuned in today to learn more about OSHA's top 10 most frequently cited standards. This webinar is sure to provide some valuable insight, some knowledge that I hope you will, or that will help grow your understanding of the most frequently cited regulations. So let's get started. You know, we are all aware that machinery employed in industrial settings can be hazardous, especially when it's not correctly operated or when it's outfitted with appropriate safeguards. Workers operating equipment may suffer from severe and potentially life-threatening injuries, such as lacerations and amputations, blindness, or even death. And that's why we need to always have proper safety protocols in place to ensure physical and health and well-being of all workers. Even the air quality at manufacturing facilities can be severely compromised by dust and hazardous chemicals, potentially leading to dangerous respiratory conditions for workers. And that's why it is essential that adequate ventilation and protective equipment are always employed. I know we have a bunch of people signed in today, and I would imagine that some viewers are just getting started with safety, while others are fine-tuning their safety and health management systems. Therefore, the purpose of this webinar is to provide West Virginia's manufacturing industry with a place to start to ensuring safe and compliant work environments. We'll be exploring common workplace hazards and violations by reviewing the top 10 most frequently cited standards. And by the end of this webinar, you should understand how best to protect your workforce while operating within the regulations that are often cited by general industry. And hopefully recognize that this picture is an example of dangerous and unsafe behavior. My name is John Frazier, and I have 25 plus years experience in industrial hygiene and safety services, working with the WVU Industrial Extension. And my mission is to ensure the health and well-being of employees by providing high quality safety and industrial hygiene solutions to West Virginia companies, and those solutions that meet or exceed the current standards. Every year, OSHA releases its list of top 10 most frequently cited violations for both the construction and general industry. Here are the OSHA's top 10 violations for general industry in 2022. And again, keep in mind, it's just general industry. And this is the latest data that we have. And the data from OSHA indicates that manufacturers in West Virginia should prioritize the chemical hazard communication, right? You can see that multiple times, shows up 3 times to be exact. Respirator protection also shows up multiple times, and machine guarding standards to ensure compliance. And so this means that workplaces need to put procedures in place for safe handling of hazardous chemicals, as well as making sure all machines are properly guarded and workers are protected from hazardous atmospheres. Additionally, other standards relating to lockout, tagout, which shows up once, and forklift truck operations, which shows up once, must be observed and followed to ensure a safe workplace environment, again, for all your employees. So let's take a closer look at the top 10 most frequently cited standards for general industry. We're going to discuss the specifics that each standard covers and how they could benefit your organization by being in compliance. So I know some of you have looked at these before. They publish them this time of year. And again, it's from data that was from last year. So let's start with number 10. This is the HAZCOM standard, and it states that safety data sheets must be easily accessible to employees, regardless of whether they are stored electronically or on paper. And this ensures that all workers have access to important safety information in a timely manner. So what does that mean? That means that safety data sheets can't be stored behind a locked door that only certain people have access to, or in a box on the wall with a lock on it, or with a supervisor that you must ask permission to get them, or an electronic system that is so password protected that you need specialized knowledge on how to reach them. That's clearly not access. And so employers must ensure that these SDSs, which is part of HAZCOM, are readily accessible to employees for all hazardous chemicals in the workplace. And so access may be given in multiple ways. For example, employers may keep a hard copy of the SDSs in a binder, maybe in a lunchroom, somewhere that's accessible 24 hours a day, or at all shifts at least. Or they can keep them on computers if employees have immediate access to that information when needed. And you have a backup available, again, for rapid access in case you have a power outage or other emergency. Finally, it's recommended that employers assign a designated person, somebody who's responsible for obtaining and consistently maintaining all of those SDSs as they change and new ones come into the facility. If these documents aren't already available, that person should contact the manufacturer or the supplier as soon as possible to get them. So that's number 10. Let's move on to number 9 of the most frequently cited standards for general industry. And if you require your workers to wear respirators during their shift, then you must have a comprehensive written respiratory protection program in place. And this really applies to mandatory or voluntary use. It just avoids the grab and go mentality and ensures that health and wellness of workers, that each person has a respirator and it's being stored properly in their container with their name on it, those kind of things. That program, there's a whole bunch that needs to be in it, but it should include selection of appropriate respirators according to the OSHA standards, depending on what you're exposed to, proper fitting and training for employees, medical clearances for those with potential health issues related to respiratory protection use, fit test protocols, how you're going to make sure that worker's achieving a good fit with the respirator that you're providing. Also, maintenance and storage. Again, how do we maintain them? How do we clean them? How do we store them? Usage instructions, including when and how long protective equipment is worn, And then finally, the cleaning, the disinfection, and the disposal procedures for all the respirators and their parts, right? New flaps, new straps, getting the right size of respirator, those kind of things. So moving right along to number 8 is, the importance of the point of operation guarding can't be overstated. And this is number 8, it's machine guarding, it's the point of operation. And we must ensure that all points of operation are guarded to prevent workers from coming into contact with moving parts, other dangerous areas on a piece of machinery. You see a lot of this in the wood industry where the blade, saw blade is meeting the wood, right? And, guards have to be designed and installed correctly. The employers should provide training to make sure that workers understand how the guards work and their purpose in protecting them from potential harm. Workers should also inspect the equipment regularly for signs of wear, damage, which might compromise its effectiveness and therefore the protection. So according to OSHA, the point of operation is an area on a machine where work is actually performed upon the material being processed. And again, that's what needs to be guarded. That's where the stock meets the blade. In fact, workers not only have to be protected from the point of operation hazards, but from the power transmission apparatuses such as pulleys and chains and other moving or rotating parts that may pose a danger to the operator. We'll have more on this later when we get to number 1. Again, workers should be familiar with the potential hazards introduced when machines with rotating parts, gears, and pulleys are used. And you can see the point of operation on this in this picture. Safe and effective machine guarding means that it's secure, that it's tamper resistant, that it's durable. So, machine guarding should prevent contact with the hazard of the machine while not interfering with your normal operation. And definitely it should not create any additional hazards because of the guard design. Let's move on to number 7. This is our powered industrial trucks competency training, and this is our forklifts. That's what OSHA calls forklifts. The employers shall ensure that each powered industrial truck operator is competent to operate a forklift safely. And that's as demonstrated by successful completion of a necessary classroom training and hands-on evaluations. Notice there's 2 components to that. We have our classroom. We may train them by lecture, by video, by demonstrations, by talking, discussions, those kind of things. And then we go out and we actually have them operate the truck. Sometimes people set up a little obstacle course or different things that they want them to complete. And so it's two components there that we need to do with that forklift training. Oh no, right? Not forklift training again. I hear that often. Some of you on this call have probably been there and done that and have a t-shirt to prove it, right? Forklift t-shirt that you've been certified. The fact of the matter is, even if we have been trained in operating forklifts before, it's important to remember that refresher training is necessary every 3 years at least, right? Forklift operation can definitely be dangerous and safety must always come first. So we want to make sure we're at least evaluating all of our operators every 3 years. We should also, during that training, provide operators with proper instruction and materials, like the operator's manual, maybe to the forklift truck. Let them read through that. Talk about how you do forklift inspections and show them the checklist, and even the OSHA standards for the powered industrial truck to make sure that they're well prepared for any situation that may arise during their shifts. So let's move on to number 6. Lockout tagout is all about the control of hazardous energy. And this is talking about the control procedures shall be developed. A lot of companies have a lockout tagout program, but they miss the written lockout tagout procedures. And so some machines may require only a cord and plug to be locked out and tagged out, meaning there's really no procedure required. But other machines have multiple sources of energy and must undergo more stringent lockout tagout procedures. So a written equipment specific lockout procedure should always be developed, and you should follow it for maximum safety, even if you've done it 100 times. It's essential to control that hazardous energy when you perform maintenance or service on any equipment, and to ensure the safety of workers and maintain compliance with the regulations. Lockout, tagout, equipment-specific procedures shall be implemented when working around all sources of energy. We could have electric, we could have hydraulic, pneumatic, or even mechanical energy. So we use a lock and tag to ensure that that equipment is at zero energy. And don't forget about the stored or residual energy. It has a lot of potential as well. So let's move on to number 5. This gets into respirators. The employer shall ensure an employee is fit tested. So fit testing is required for workers who wear respirators in order to ensure that the protective device fits properly and provides adequate protection against any hazardous airborne particles or contaminants. So there are different types of fit tests are used depending on the type of respirator being worn. So you could have a qualitative, which is like on the left there, you're under the hood and you're just, do you smell it or not? Do you taste it or not? Or you can have a quantitative, which actually measures molecules, right, and gives you a fit. So employers must provide fit testing initially and at least once a year, or more often if job conditions changes or if the person changes. So staying on the respirator topic, employers must also provide medical evaluations for all workers who are required to wear a respirator as part of their job. So this is number 4 of the most cited violations for last year. And so we have to do training. So we're seeing respirators show up multiple times, as with HAZCOM. In fact, the 3rd most frequently cited standard is that all workers must be thoroughly trained, right, on how to safely and effectively communicate the hazards of chemicals in the workplace. And this training should cover safety protocols, proper use of safety equipment, as well as any necessary emergency response procedures that may need to take place. Again, staying on the chemical hazard communication topic, the 2nd most frequently cited standard for general industry is the requirement to provide a written chemical hazard communication program, right? This program outlines how communication about hazardous chemicals will be handled in your workplace. So we're seeing HAZCOM show up a lot, right? And some of the things that should be in that program, has to include information on labeling, like what kind of label method you're going to use, how we label, those kind of things. Where do we get labels? Safety data sheets, where are they stored? How do we access them? How do we read them? Talk about the different sections, the 16 different sections on those safety data sheets. And on employee training, which is required initially and when anything changes or any new chemicals are introduced. Although it's highly recommended that you provide training annually on HAZCOM regardless, because people do forget about labeling, about SDSs, and those kind of things. So finally, the top most frequently cited standard in general industry in 2022 has to do with machine guarding. We've seen this machine guarding twice now. And specifically, employers must provide guarding methods to protect employees from machine hazards that could cause injury, such as nip points, rotating parts, flying chips, sparks. Basically, anything that can move, we have to guard if we can get our hand or body part into it. So you can have different methods to protect workers, and that could include physical guards or presence sensing devices or some type of electronic safety device. And just to go through a couple of these, fixed guards offer reliable protection against moving parts and can be constructed from acrylic, metal, plastic. They provide the maximum stability. These types of guards have to be bolted on, they have to be welded, they have to be locked. They can't just be duct tape, right? So they have to be held in place to provide a stable protection from that moving part. And so fixed guards are often recommended. Sometimes you can't use the fixed guards. Then we have to come up with other guarding methods. Adjustable guards or self-adjusting or manually adjustable, as these 2 pictures show. Guards that allow the material to be of multiple sizes or shapes, but still protect the worker. Interlock guards can be set to instantly shut off power to a machine when the interlock is tripped, while sensors are designed to shut off a machine or tool as soon as the visible or the invisible barrier is broken. So a lot of people use light curtains in that situation. And then we have our safety trip controls. And much like the interlocks and the sensors, these are devices in the form of a metal bar, a steel cable, or a wire. Sometimes you can have floor mats or gates, and these are designed to trip and shut off the power to the machine if a worker touches steps or enters the danger area. And then we have to ensure, again, safety of workers. So we can use restraint and pullback devices. You see those sometimes, right? I haven't seen a lot of these, but I do see them at some facilities, especially the restraint. And wrist straps shown in picture B provide secure connection between the worker and the device or equipment they are operating. And then while we had the pullback devices that work on the machine's movement to prevent people from placing their hands into the danger area, and that's shown in picture A. And so these are different devices. Sometimes on a press brake, you'll see these restraint devices, and they only allow you to go so far if you adjust them and wear them correctly. Just remember that one or more methods of machine guarding shall be provided to protect the operator and other employees in the machine area from hazards, such as those created by the point of operation, which was one of the top 10, ingoing nip points, rotating parts, flying chips, and sparks. That comes straight from the standard. This picture shows an abrasive grinder with missing tongue guards and improperly adjusted tool rest. And we know there's some dimensions with those as well. So brush up on those. So let's wrap up. The top 10 most frequently cited standards for general industry. In addition to these top 10, there's other best practices and guidelines that can be followed in order to ensure safety and efficiency. I hope you found this safety webinar beneficial, and I believe that the top 10 is a great starting place for learning something new. And I hope you use this knowledge to make sure your workers stay safe and healthy in 2023. I would add one more thing, that you can fine-tune these for your industry. If you go to OSHA.gov, you can actually create a top 10 list for your North American classification code, industry classification code. So with that, I appreciate you joining today. Again, never hesitate to contact me or any of us on the industrial extension team. And I'm going to turn it back over to Jamie.
Yeah, thanks,
if we
John.
have any questions.
Yeah, thanks, John. So, great stuff. I always learn a lot whenever I watch these. I was watching that, thinking about all of the different areas that I know you guys help with. So if people want to start asking their questions now, that's great. But I was going to say, is the mock OSHA the best place to start if you're just looking for a blanket, hey, are we being safe kind of a thing with you guys? So if you want to answer that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would be an excellent place to start. Mock OSHA inspection with a report is basically where we come in and we do an opening conference. We talk to you. We look at your programs, your recordables, and then we go out and we do a facility walkthrough, and we take pictures of that walkthrough of hazards. We try to focus on unsafe conditions, but sometimes we get behaviors if we can sort of shield the worker from that. But we don't have to. But yeah, we get a report after that, and we would generate that report with a picture and the actual potential hazard and how to fix that. Low cost, no cost solutions. Much like OSHA would do, except we would try to find a lot more because we're just trying to make you aware of different hazards out there in the workplace. That report would be between you and our group. So I don't know. Does that answer that, Jamie?
Yeah. And that's what I was going to emphasize. A lot of times whenever I talk to folks, they're a little concerned about who's going to see that report, right? I mean, nobody wants to be called out as being unsafe. So that's definitely between us and the client. I could ask you, hey, go through the list of people who are attending and talk about the biggest violations you've seen at their facilities, but we won't do that to anybody right now, right? We don't do that. So yeah, that's a good one. Anything else? Let's see, short and sweet with repeats. Let's see. So anybody have any specific questions about OSHA violations or any other safety concerns that they'd like to bring up at this time? I'm not seeing a lot of questions. So John, looks like you must have done a really good job.
I was going to ask something.
Oh, sure.
It took me a while to get off to find my mute button.
Oh, okay.
Would we ever think about scheduling classes on the reporting, hands-on first person, kind of like, do a presentation where we actually do the report, do the accident, do the safety remediation. I did that with my union probably 30 years ago with hazmat training and all that. And it was very beneficial because that's the only way you're going to learn is to do it. So just a thought.
Yeah, that's a good comment there, John. And I will say that we have in a couple cases recently, we've done the mock OSHA inspection and we wrote the report in a PowerPoint and then went back and presented that to the client and to a group of people within that company. And so that everybody could see what we found and why we're saying it's a hazard or out of compliance. And it turned into a great learning session. So along those lines.
Great, John. And the floodgates have opened now. We've got more questions coming in. So are there minimum requirements for the pit driving test? That's coming from Jeff Rutter there.
The pit driving test.
And I didn't know what that was. I was hoping
Yeah, I was
you
going
would.
to say I'm not sure what he's referring to there either.
Okay. So yeah, Jeff, if you want to follow up with a little bit more information. Oh, tow truck.
Oh, forklifts. And what was the question then? Now that
so are there
PIT, powered industrial trucks? That's what it was.
Requirements for yeah.
I don't see those on my end. Let me bring up the chat.
Yeah, are there minimum requirements?
Are there minimum requirements for? Yes. So you have to be 18. You have to be trained in the classroom, and then you have to do your hands-on, and you have to pass both of those to be able to operate a powered industrial truck. And then obviously every 3 years after that, you'd be reevaluated by the company. But it's truly the company that is authorizing you to have, or your workers to, operate those trucks. So you just have to have somebody who's knowledgeable and competent on those trucks do that training for you. We do a lot of that training. But I think does that answer your question there, Jeff?
Anything specific for hands-on driving came up from Jeff as well. So
okay. So I also see here, Jamie, like, what should you do if an OSHA inspector shows up at your facility? That's a good one, right? You should be prepared is what I would recommend. And oftentimes that mock OSHA inspection report that we do helps get you prepared for that. And, if you're prepared, you really shouldn't worry about an OSHA inspector showing up randomly at your door. So I'll just leave it at that. You can prepare for those inspections as well. And you probably should in terms of having a camera and tape measure and collecting the same data that they collect as they go around your facility. So
and John, we have discussed before, I want you to clarify for sure, but if there is a violation, if someone gets cited for a violation, they can contact you about how the best way to respond is, right? Because I know that the response oftentimes determines the magnitude of the penalty. If I'm
right. Yeah, we can help with and assist you with filling out the abatement, the hazard abatement forms and those kind of things if you need that assistance. So replying back and making sure that if you need something, we can help you get that into place as well after the fact. So.
Yeah, there's another. What should you do if an OSHA facility, if someone shows up at your facility? So that's good.
Yeah, and I would also add with that is that that person, you should check their credentials, obviously, call the area director in Charleston, make sure they're supposed to be there, set them in a conference room, put them through the same training that you would have to go through as an employee, make them wear PPE, and then, show them what they want to see, and making sure that you're prepared for that ahead of time. So that's.
Sure.
I've got another question.
Sure.
Yeah. Now, the latest training I've taken was OSHA 30. Are there any other plans to expand on that?
To expand, so OSHA 30 is they have a 10 and 30 hour general industry outreach training, and both myself and Greg, who work for the industrial extension, Greg Green, we're both authorized. We teach that class on a regular basis. I do not know any updates on that class as far as a new version of it. There was some talks about changing. Do we have to do it in 2 days instead of 1 and those kind of things? But there's still just the 10 and 30 hour for general industry as well as the construction industry.
Yeah, with all these new laws passed with the Inflation Reduction Act and the infrastructure bill, there's going to be more jobs that are dangerous, and probably should expand on that. Those jobs are going to be coming hard and fast, and
Sure.
there's going to be a real need for that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. And
Yeah, good.
And John, thanks for mentioning Greg. I should have done that from the very start. John and Greg Green are kind of our team that deals with all of the health and safety issues that come up. So both of those guys are busy, but it's great that we've got two very high quality people who can answer questions and help provide a lot of this training. We've got a question here. Who can I reach out for conducting the forklift training certification? And John, I would assume.
Yeah, we do that. We'd be happy to help train your operators on forklifts. If you have somebody who's knowledgeable and competent at your company, you can do it, right? And it's really the employer certifying that training has been done, and you do the classroom and the hands-on. So we oftentimes do handle that training though. I also see here that somebody talks about a 30-hour, Jamie. Do you see that one?
Yeah, that's our good friend James Shaw. Good to see you, James.
All right. So it says, would a 30-hour be a minimum requirements for safety supervisor? A 30-hour, a 10-hour, any of those general industry outreach training courses would be a great training program to do and provide that supervisor with a lot of knowledge, right, on hazard recognition, on evaluation and control of hazards. But we always have to remember that the 30 and the 10-hour, it can't replace your employee training. So even though we cover HAZCOM and lockout, tagout, and all the topics, that can't be in place of your annual training requirement. And it's always like, well, we're doing the exact same thing pretty much, so why can't it? But OSHA has that stipulation that it's not to be used for employee training. So it's more of an educational hazard awareness control type training. So that's a good question, James.
Yeah, and he had a follow up there, John. I'm going to let you field that.
Yeah, and we do not offer ourselves the HAZWOPER. I'm not sure if we have a third party who does that, and I'm not a HAZWOPER knowledge base, so I'm not going to comment on that one. That's the hazardous waste and cleanup operations. I just don't have the experience in that one. But it would be a good addition if you ever did have chemicals that could spill, right? And we have to clean those up, and we have workers who are responsible for that. It's a good question.
Yeah, John Christensen put that on there. And I'd also like to say that just about, well, all of the training that we offer can be classified under the governor's guaranteed workforce, and they will help assist for taking care of some of the sting out of those training dollars, right? So they usually pay up to half on that. Happy to get you in touch with the folks at governor's guaranteed workforce if you're not using them. And that's not just, I say for our training, but that's for most of the training that manufacturers are doing, that's going to qualify. So always happy to help you save some money if we can on our training or someone else's, as long as it helps you out. We're happy to make that connection for you. Let's see here. Oh, it's John again. Comprehensive employer paid for it. Okay, excellent. Does anybody else have a question or comment before we head out? I think this has been really great. All right, looks like everybody's happy. I'm happy. So don't forget some of those dates coming up, especially if you're in the NRG RDA region. We've got a lot of trainings coming up in that area, but we're doing some more webinars and things too. So looking forward to being in contact with everybody, and have a great and safe rest of your day. Thanks, John.